New Zealand is beautiful, and Americans fall in love.
I was always like, I'm going to move to New Zealand. I'm going back to New Zealand. It just spoke to me.
And now there's a steady stream of them making a huge decision to give up their citizenship.
I sort of felt liberated.
Some say it's because of this guy.
Frankly, this was, I believe, the greatest political movement of all time.
But the biggest reason they can't openly talk about. Welcome to the NBR Podcast. I'm your host, Simon Shepherd. Here is something you will never hear an American say out loud if they're about to give up their citizenship. It's because I don't want to pay tax. Yes, child abduction, sex trafficking, drug running, genocide, and tax avoidance will get you blacklisted from entering the United States. To be fair, it's hardly ever enforced. There's something more and more Americans are having to navigate. So why are thousands of US citizens every year living all over the globe handing back their passports?
Well, in 1998, Anne and I took a holiday trip to New Zealand.
Mike Spratt and wife Anne had great, busy careers in the States until they travelled here.
Fell in love with the country, and within a matter of months after returning, we said, let's retire. Let's leave our careers. Let's move to New Zealand and do whatever retired people do.
A year later, they came back to scout a location and then migrated in 2000.
Most people say, well, why would you do it? Such a big move. But to us, it seemed very natural. It just seemed logical. And we thought, well, we'll find some land, we'll build a house, and then we'll do whatever retired people do.
And that's what you've done.
Well, we found some land on Waiheke.
Yeah.
And we looked at it. We said, well, this is an interesting place. Maybe we could plant some vines and make some wine, and that would be fun. And now, 25 years later, that site is the site of Destiny Bay.
That's your vineyard. Right.
That's our vineyard on Waiheke. And we produce New Zealand's highest rated, most expensive wine. It's a Cabernet blend that's considered to be among the top Cabernet blends in the world. And so, you sort of listen to the story and you say, it had to be destiny. If it wasn't, what is it?
Yeah, okay.
And for us, it was just, as they say, you don't want to mess around with destiny.
No.
That's how Mike came here. Now let's hear from another American down under. This one's a Michael.
Wow, it's just was one of those backpacking trips. I was 20-something years old.
Michael Dirth is a famous restaurateur. He owned the fine dining Grove restaurant in Auckland for 20 years, is well known for his Italian restaurant Baduzzi, and
I want daring, passion, excellence. I want the first taste to blow me away.
for being a judge in the MasterChef TV series. He ended up here after a long stint backpacking in Australia and Asia.
And I remember breaking through the clouds coming into New Zealand, and I was just like, this place is amazing. And then I learned that term, Turenga Waiwai, where you stand, but the country really called me.
So Mike and Michael spent decades here, settling, building businesses, and finally becoming New Zealand citizens, but neither gave up their American passport.
I've been thinking about it for a long time.
Mike Spratt thought about it for 18 or 19 years.
And then this last election, I decided it's time to act.
It is now official. CNN projects that Donald Trump has been elected president, defeating Vice President Kamala Harris.
It was less because of who won the election and got in, and more about kind of being shocked and disappointed that so many Americans were okay putting a convicted felon in the White House. And it sort of destroyed my faith in the, American dream of liberty and justice for all.
It's not just you, though, is it, that was renouncing?
No, the rest of my family did.
It was family that stopped Michael Dirth from renouncing his citizenship.
We have 2 children, and that now they're 18 and 16. I don't know what they're going to want to do when they're young adults. They might want to travel and work in the U.S.
Yeah.
And at the moment, they don't. If you make under a certain dollar, you don't have to pay tax. You don't have to file.
Right. Don't have to file taxes.
Yeah, you don't have to file. So I think right now they're just they're going to keep their U.S. passport. My wife and I, we decided to relinquish our passports. We had at the time 2 businesses, 2 restaurants. We have 2 residences. We bought this beautiful little batch, and there was a lot going on. So we have deep roots here in New Zealand. This is home.
Yeah,
I love New Zealand. We love to travel to America. It just we simplified things.
Mike and Michael are in good company. Between 5,000 and 6,000 Americans renounce their citizenship every year. Why? It's a 3-letter word.
U.S. citizens are taxed on their worldwide assets and income because the United States is one of a couple countries in the world that taxes based on citizenship.
Alex Marino is from Canadian firm Moody's Tax and specialises in helping Americans say no to being American.
Every pound, loonie, peso, euro you ever make in life and in death is subject to tax. So Too many people were getting hit with the IRS hammer and wanted a solution. They didn't want treatment, they wanted a cure, and that was the birth of this practice group in 2012, and 7,000 plus renunciations later, 1,200 plus a year across 6 continents, it's grown to be the largest in the world.
Now, you mentioned that US is only one of a few or 2 countries actually does this citizen tax regime.
That's correct. If you're ever on Jeopardy, and the other, which is the other country, it's the small East African country of Eritrea.
Eritrea. Okay.
That's correct.
All right. Has the trend been increasing or has it been steady?
Great question. I mean, when we were lucky enough to have the largest subset of renouncers and also green card holders, because green card holders are in the same tax soup. It's not just the citizens living abroad. And what we've seen is a steady incline just within our firm, almost a doubling year over year up until 2024 into 2025.
Okay.
So a lot of people will say, hey, is renunciation going up because this guy's in office or that guy's in office? And really, at the end of the day, there are political wins that help push people towards that decision. But at the end of the day, this is a financial problem for 98% of U.S. citizens living outside the United States, whether it's the sale of your home, the cost of filing, incorporation, trusts, death tax. Everybody can speak the dollars and cents at the end of the day, regardless of political party.
Right, yeah, that was going to be one of my questions as to whether it was a political motivation, but you're telling me that it's more a dollars and cents motivation. You also just mentioned that it's not just US citizens, but it's also those who hold green cards. Now, quite a few Kiwis hold green cards. So could they find themselves in a similar situation?
100%. I mean, the webinars and in-person presentations that we do are 2.5 hours for our Aussies, Kiwis, residents of Southeast Asia. We do them every 6 to 8 weeks, and hundreds of individuals attend. And it's not just citizens, because there are 2 subsets of individuals under the Internal Revenue Code that are taxed on their worldwide assets. One is green card holders, and the other is citizens.
There is a group of people who get caught up in this. They call themselves accidental Americans, and there are some famous ones.
Stay close to the Americans, stick up for the Ukrainians, stick up for freedom.
Former British Prime Minister Boris Johnson was born in New York. American by birth, he got slugged a hefty US capital gains tax bill for selling his home in London. Another former British Prime Minister, Rishi Sunak, was a green card holder and also had to pay US taxes.
So yes, if you're a green card holder out there living outside the United States, 2 important things to remember. Number one, green cards, just because they expired, doesn't mean your tax status expires. That means a piece of plastic expired. Just like if your Kiwi passport expired, doesn't mean you're not a Kiwi anymore. And just because they take a passport at the airport or the border, doesn't mean that it's properly terminated. We need to backfile returns through an amnesty program, terminate and avoid the exit tax, just like a citizen.
There is a tax treaty between New Zealand and America, but that doesn't reduce the costs of double filing or the hassle of working out what's covered and what's not. And what's not covered is capital gains tax on property, also known as an exit tax in the US.
The treaty only helps when both countries tax.
Yeah.
What happens when you sell that principal residence that's tax-free in Auckland?
Yeah.
When Uncle Sam comes calling for $200,000, that's how Boris Johnson learned the hard way.
So let's talk about that, because capital gains tax is a big talking point in New Zealand. We don't have one, but there is one in America. And so even if I've been living here for a very long time, but I want to sell my house and it's worth a certain amount, the US is going to say, give me how much, what percentage of it?
Yeah, that's a great question. It's going to be a calculation of gain.
Right.
So it's all about the way the U.S. works is they'll tax the gain. So what you'll have, there is an exemption. So you don't need to completely panic. The U.S. will exempt the first $250,000 US of gain on the sale of your principal residence.
Okay.
So if you sell that principal residence in Auckland, in London, in Toronto, we look at what the sale price, what the original purchase price was, any improvements that would qualify to adjust that basis. We look at the sale price, and if the delta between that is more than $250,000 US or more, you're going to be giving 23.8% of that delta to Uncle Sam.
Almost a quarter of my gain.
A quarter.
Okay. Wow. All right. Now, surely there's a way around it.
There is. Our job is to avoid that exit tax. Our job is to prep you for an interview so you're not blacklisted from the U.S. Our job is to make sure after you renounce, you can still collect Social Security, travel to the U.S. whenever you want, still have your IRAs, 401ks, Roths, real estate there. We want to get you through the gauntlet, avoiding all of the bad, coming out on the other end, treated like any other Kiwi.
Right. Is there a way that I can just give away to someone else my my net worth in US assets before I do this renouncing, so they don't say, I don't have anything left. I've given it all away, so you can't tax me. Is there a way to do that?
There is ways to avoid the U.S. exit tax. Right now, with the current legislation under the Trump tax policies, there is a path to renounce for individuals with proper planning at about 16 to 17 million or less. If Kamala Harris had won, that number would be 1 or 2. Oh. So right now is the opportune time to plan around the exit tax for high net worth individuals. Now, to your question, can you? Yes, but you got to be careful. For example, the U.S. has a gift tax. Oh. So we have to make sure that we don't run into a gift tax while we avoid the exit tax.
Can I just pause for a quick reminder to say, if you're enjoying the NBR podcast, independent business journalism, please give us a follow and share it around. Now, it's back to the Americans. It's tricky, which is why American Kiwis like Michael and Mike had to employ specialist tax lawyers. Once the forms are filled out, there's another hurdle: getting an appointment at Auckland's US consulate to officially renounce. Here's Mike Spratt.
It took 2.5 months. I hadn't even gotten a response. Now, we hired a firm to help us do this.
Yes.
And so that made a huge difference because it is complicated.
Right.
And we ended up I ended up sending my request to, I think it was Kuala Lumpur, Perth, Sydney, Auckland. Yeah. And Perth was the first one to respond.
Okay.
They responded within, I would say a week to 10 days and said, your documents all look in order. Click on this link and you can make an appointment. So I did.
And so pretty soon you ended up in Perth.
That's right.
Tickets to Perth.
And that was early September. The 3rd of September was the date that I renounced.
Just passed.
Perth, this last September.
Wow. And what was the process like in the consulate? Because you've done all the forms, but you physically have to sit there in an interview and answer some questions.
First of all, it's only a 15-minute interview slot. So I flew all the way to Perth, 7 hours on a flight, stayed in a hotel, walked across the street, went in for a 15-minute appointment, came out, got in the taxi, went out to the airport and flew home.
Mike's wife managed to renounce in Auckland, but his son also had to go to Perth, as did fellow American restaurateur Michael Dirth.
New Zealand was fully booked. So then we did this long process. Honestly, it took us it took us a long time. I want to say like about 4 years. We did everything, paid everything, provided everything. It was this long, I think COVID had something to do with it.
Yep.
And so we had, we go, okay, we're done. And then you have all this exit tax. But then they were like, oh, well, we can't see you for a year and a half. And then you'd have to pay another whole tax cycle. And so I'm like, this is crazy. So then I heard that people do these little holidays that they will go somewhere sunny and beautiful and make a party out of it and have, here's my passports and I'm going to now go to the beach.
Right.
And so we first looked at some places that were a little bit more romantic, but then being pragmatic, like, okay, look at Sydney. They didn't have anything in Sydney for a month. And then at Perth, the people in Perth called us, like, said, well, we can see you in a couple of weeks.
And so you announced your US citizenship in Perth.
In Perth.
How long ago was that?
That was a couple of years ago. Yeah.
Any regrets?
None.
Here we should mention the one thing you can't say in that interview when giving up US citizenship. The one thing that we've been talking about a lot, tax. Talk about that and you might never go back to the States even as a visitor.
If you walked into that interview and they said, hey, Simon, why are you here today giving up your U.S. citizenship? And you said, you know what? I'm about to sell my home and I don't want to pay U.S. tax on the sale of that home.
Yeah.
With the Reed Amendment, which, I can't make this up if I tried, individuals that are blacklisted under the Reed Amendment involve sex traffickers, child abductors, Nazis who committed genocide, individuals who renounce to avoid tax. It reads itself like a Stephen King novel. But yes, you would be renounced, but you would be blacklisted for life. In the 7,000 plus of these we've done over the last 13 years, we've prepped every single one across 6 continents and never had one person blacklisted. We do not lie. You are under oath.
Right.
But we will tell the select truths to get the results we need and want.
Some Americans fear retribution for renouncing their citizenship. The US publishes the names of citizens who give up their passports. But others feel it was just time and are open about it. But either way, it is a big deal.
My mother and father, they're not with us anymore. And I think, my dad probably would have been really upset with me. Because, he's patriotic, true blue American. He would have been like, it's fine. He was really proud that we moved to New Zealand and followed our dream. But I think he would have probably been a bit shocked.
Right.
Way worse than a tattoo. You're renouncing your U.S. What are you, crazy?
Yeah.
So I just think there was this little psychological thing, like what would my parents do? They would think like there was. We were very clear. We knew what we wanted. We're like New Zealand is home. We're going to renounce.
But there is that pull. Obviously, you're American. You got family there.
Yeah. So. And there was a lot of stuff happening politically. So when it was like, rip off this Band-Aid, we're doing it.
Yeah.
So there was no, we were 100% all in, but there was this little seed of this psychological sort of, I don't know if it was my Catholic upbringing, but I was definitely going to the actual place and handing in your passport was big.
Michael Dirth has since travelled back to his former homeland, no problems, as a visiting Kiwi. Mike Spratt's family has only just gone through the process and is waiting for their official document.
It was something that we'd been talking about and I'd been thinking about for a long time. And so it just needed something to sort of push us over the edge. Yeah. And I think that's what happened. And, the first step, once I said, that's it. It's time to renounce.
Well, final question then. Newly renounced, do you actually feel any different?
A little bit. As soon as I walked out at about 11:15, in the morning on the 3rd of September, I sort of felt liberated.
And that wraps up this episode of the NBR Podcast. Any social clips used are in the description, and thanks to senior content producer Joseph Hisayasu. For early access to new episodes, subscribe at nbr.co.nz. I'm Simon Shepherd, and we'll catch you next episode.